Dr. Eli Bauman brushed the remainder of the dirt from the window with trembling hands. This project was his baby. He'd spent the last decade honing his skills in the burgeoning field of satellite archaeology, scouring the Sahara Desert in search of the answer to one of ancient civilization's greatest mysteries: the disappearance of the army of Cambyses II, the eldest son of Cyrus the Great. In 524 BCE, the second king of kings of the Achaemenid Empire dispatched his forces to the Siwa Oasis with orders to destroy the Oracle of Amun, whose priests refused to legitimize his claim to Egypt. According to historical records, 50,000 of his most ferocious soldiers marched into the desert from Luxor and vanished into a sandstorm, never to be seen again. With the way the volatile winds reshaped this sandy wasteland's topography seemingly on a daily basis, it was no surprise that their remains had yet to be discovered. Barcan dunes rolled like waves through the Karga Depression, a broad valley framed by 900-foot-tall stone escarpments at a rate of 300 feet per year, which rendered LIDAR, near-infrared satellite imaging capable of penetrating the ground to a depth of 5 feet, virtually useless. Dr. Bauman had used 15 years of Landsat MSS data and aerial reconnaissance photos from World War II to create an algorithm that predicted the movement of the dunes and digitally subtracted the sand, allowing the satellite to acquire imagery at depths previously beyond its range. Even with such revolutionary technology, however, he'd still been looking for a cluster of 50,000 needles and hundreds of thousands of square miles of haystacks. Skeletal remains were porous and absorbed the mineral content of their surroundings, which made them nearly invisible to even the most advanced satellites, especially with imagery that only resolved to 3-foot square pixels. So he'd been forced to change his approach. Instead of searching for the bodies of the missing soldiers, he'd probed beneath the strata for any sign of a camp or settlement where they might have sought shelter from the storm. In ancient times, routes through the vast desert had been dictated by the availability of water, which funneled upward from the underlying karst landscape through aquifers and formed oases in the middle of nowhere. Even with the thriving flora that served to shield these life-giving pools from the savage environment, they were constantly threatened by extreme drought, unstable geology, and advancing sands. Those that dried up left trace minerals and sediment that stood out like beacons, even beneath several feet of sand. It had been the discovery of one such buried oasis that caused Dr. Bauman to zero in on this region, where a combination of remote sensing techniques had revealed a buried village theoretically large enough to support a population of several thousand people. It had taken nearly 2 years to secure the funding, but now here they stood, or rather crouched, on the brink of realizing his dream. Dr. Bauman's face had paled considerably when he finally looked up at the others. Tears glimmered on his cheeks and beneath his thick black beard. "They're here," he whispered. "Can't you feel it? 50,000 souls crying out to be found." Rana glanced from one of her fellow students to the next. They all wore the same mixed expression of excitement and apprehension. When she looked back at Dr. Bauman, he was staring right at her. "What?" she asked. "You're not afraid of heights, are you?"